Hi there, this is Ron Sexsmith. You're listening to the Mixtape on Radio Fremantle. There's a Paul McCartney song that no one ever talks about. I think it's one of his best songs called Warm and Beautiful. And I remember when I met him in 96, I was asking him mostly Wings questions. I wanted to know about this song and that song. And that's the one I brought up at the table. And at first he couldn't remember it. And so I'm at the kitchen table singing it. I go, well, it goes like, sunlight's morning glory, all those stuff. And then it was coming back to him. So we're both at the table singing it. I listened almost exclusively to vinyl at home. But I love the whole ritual of putting a vinyl album on the thing and dropping the needle. And
This is the Mixtape Podcast. I am your host, Mark. If you enjoy this week's episode, please feel free to rate it 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can find over 140 archive episodes just by visiting themixtapepodcast.com. And there you will also find the link to my Mixcloud. On the Mixcloud channel, you can also hear the music that my guests pick for their mixtape. Also on the website are my social media links and YouTube channel. You can find all of that good stuff at themixtapepodcast.com. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's Mixtape show for Radio Fremantle 107.9 FM and the mixtapepodcast.com. Joining me today, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Canadian singer-songwriter Ron Sexsmith. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure, mate. It is an absolute pleasure. So we're talking today about the Hangover Terrace Tour coming to Australia, April 2026, kicking off in Sydney, hitting all the usual suspects, Brisbane, Melbourne, Adelaide, finishing up for Perth and Fremantle people. The important date is Sunday, the 26th of April. It's the Rosemount Hotel, and it's davidroywilliams.com for tickets for that one. Are you excited to be back in Australia, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, it's been, 10 years, since I've been there. And I'm not a big fan of flying, and it's a long plane ride. But I love once you get there. It's one of my favorite places, and so I'm looking forward to because I'm 61. I don't know how many more times I'm going to get to that part of the world. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Oh, fantastic. We're looking forward to seeing you here for sure, mate. When you're on tour somewhere like Australia, Ron, somewhere you don't get to that often, what does a day look like on tour for you? Do you like to get out and about and do some sightseeing, see some sights? What do you like to get up to?
I like to get out for walks. I love to walk around. I mean, whether I'd like to do that even when I'm home. I just like to get out and walk around. And obviously, if it's a town that I've been to a bunch of times, sometimes there's certain neighborhoods or areas where I like to stroll around memory lane kind of thing, and always looking for a good coffee, which is not hard to find in Australia. The coffee's very good there. Um, Sometimes in Australia there's a beach nearby too, which I don't really get to do very often over here. So yeah, I just like to walk around. I'm not a sightseer, but I just like to walk around in whatever neighborhood I'm in. So.
Yeah. So Hangover Terrace then, I think I'm right in saying it's your 17th album. Is that right?
Yeah, unless you count this one Rarities that came out in 2003, which it would make it 18. But yeah, it's basically my 17th studio album.
And how was the creative process on that album for you? And one of the things I always like to ask sort of artists like yourself who've been going quite some time is, has your creative process evolved or changed since your sort of self-titled debut? What would it be, nearly 30 years ago now? How's that changed?
I just think just from doing it so much, I think I'm just much better at problem solving, and sometimes you get stuck on a verse or whatever. I think I'm just better at figuring stuff out. I write a lot more on the piano these days, and I've gotten better on the piano, and that's different. But I think I'm singing better than I used to. It took me a long time, I think, to sort of find my voice really. But the general, the ideas keep coming, the melodies keep coming, and it's sort of my job to be aware of that and to, turn these little fragments into something.
Do you ever sort of, if you get a bit sort of stuck and sort of writer's block or whatever, do you have like a particular technique or something you go through mentally to try and try and get through that? Is there anything you do in that space?
I don't really I haven't had that problem that much with, you know, things, writer's block or whatever like that. But I think for me, when I'm sitting around the house, I'm just and I'm generally playing somebody else's song, I'm like, singing a Lightfoot song or Warren Zevon and I find that's helpful too, just to if you haven't got an idea, sometimes just singing somebody else's song can get you, make the light bulb come on over your head.
So with Hangover Terrace, I saw on your website, ronsexsmith.com, some vinyl and CD bundles, some lovely colourful vinyl as well. Are you much of a vinyl collector yourself, Ron, in physical formats?
Yeah, I don't even have a cell phone, so, I mean, I listen almost exclusively to vinyl at home. We have a very I mean, I really love my stereo, it's a Riga, and, I mean, I play CDs too. There's some CDs I haven't been able to find on vinyl, but, no, I still listen to a lot of records. Sometimes my friend will come over with his computer, and we'll listen to music on one of the platforms, or we'll take turns DJing or something, songs. But I love the whole ritual of putting a vinyl album on the thing and dropping the needle, and, that's always made a lot of sense to me. But I'm old, so that's how I like to do it, so.
Yeah, no, so am I. We're not too far apart in age, Ron. I've got a similar thing. A friend of mine, George, he's moved a little bit away from me now, so we don't do it that often. We haven't done it for ages. But what we used to do was like 5 or 6 records we'd each bring to each other's house and sit down and have a few beers and just, have a little play party and play stuff for each other. I haven't done that for ages. We need to do that again. Yeah,
Yeah, I
for
do I
sure.
do I have a friend like that too, but we still do it. He'll drive to see me here where I live, and
Mm.
we'll do it at his house. It's just one of my favorite things, really, so.
Yeah. And so as I mentioned earlier, I don't want to make you feel old or anything, but we talked earlier, your self-titled album came out, I think, 95. What kept you motivated and to keep writing and playing and touring like all these years?
Well, I was just so lucky in a way and relieved to get in the door because I was already I mean, I was 30 when I got signed, which is kinda old, for the music biz, and I really wanted to have a body of work, and it was hard in the beginning because, I made an album, my first album, the label hated it, so I was kind of on shaky ground, and I managed to somehow hang in there, and I've been bounced around a lot by the industry, and I feel kind of like a survivor of the industry, but I think because I haven't had a big, enormous hit-selling record, every album for me is kind of like a chance to prove myself or to introduce myself, because so many people still have never heard of me. So it's kind of been a good thing 'cause it's made me not get lazy really or
Yeah.
complacent, like you might say of some other people who are successful,
Mm.
So, I don't know, I just, I'm not very good at anything else, so I'm very lucky I found this one thing that uber focused on compulsively, and yeah, and that I can sort of almost, make a living doing it?
Mm. Yeah. No, for sure. I thought personally as a fan of yours, I felt like the Gold in Them Hills, the Chris Martin collab might be what put you as an artist into the sort of mainstream. Do you know what I mean? But you never like took on. And for people like me who were fans, I think we sort of. I it's not great for you, but we like that. Like we like we like the fact that you're not like huge and you're
Yeah.
still like our little secret. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but even so, I mean, I've had, like, one album, my record called Long Player Late Bloomer, I had, in the UK, I had 2 top 10 hits from that record,
Mm,
and on my Retriever album, I had 2 top 20 hits in Canada.
mm,
So I've had some luck
mm,
with radio and certain countries. I get quite a bit of airplay in Ireland and that, and
mm,
so, I mean, yeah, I I always felt just grateful for anything good that happened
mm,
because I did get such a late start,
mm,
and I have I'm very lucky that I have a following all around the world that I can go and fill a room and people know my songs, and that's all I ever really wanted, and, I don't need to play stadiums or anything like that. I love just to play rooms that are full and where
mm.
people are listening.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
You're listening to the mixtape.
All right, Ron. Let's do the quick fire 5 questions now. And the same 5 questions that everybody gets when they come on the
Yeah.
show. Just before we do the mixtape track choices, mostly centered around sort of touring and live shows and stuff. First quick fire question is: do you have a pre-show ritual?
Well, I tend to pace around a lot. I'm a worrier, so I worry about everything, the set list, the show, and all this stuff. But I like to have some wine before I go on, a couple glasses of wine to make me feel less inhibited or something. I call it courage juice. So I like to have a little red wine. Sometimes there isn't any, and that's fine too. But that's what I like hanging out with my band backstage, and we all sort of do a similar thing. We kind of pace around nervously and just hope that it's going to be a good show.
I'm not expecting too much of a show-stopping answer for this one from you, Ron. What is the most rock star thing you've ever done?
Well, I can tell you, it was when I flew my parents over to see me play at the Royal Albert Hall.
Amazing.
That was felt like something a rock star might do, you know. So
Absolutely, yeah.
I bought them plane tickets and I arranged a really nice hotel room for them. And so that felt good. And that
Mm.
was I think Elvis Presley would have done that.
Absolutely. What an amazing venue that is. I've seen a few shows there, obviously being a Londoner, native Londoner. Yeah, it's one of my
Yeah.
favourite London venues. And so we mentioned the Chris Martin collab earlier, but who would be your dream collaborator, alive or dead?
Well, there's certain people like I've always, you know, a lot of them are dead now, right? But I mean, I would have loved to have done something with Bill Withers.
Mm.
I've written a few songs with him in mind over the years. Like I had a song called "Whatever It Takes," and "The Less I Know" was written with him in mind. So it would have been cool if I could have met him, or Dusty Springfield is someone I would have loved to have met and maybe sang with. Karen Carpenter. But
Yeah.
yeah, I any of those people I would have loved to have worked with.
I saw I think it was a YouTube short or something earlier on social media about Karen Carpenter. Like she was a drummer, but like amazing drummer, like not just a drummer. Like she was incredible. And there's this little clip of a drummer. And I had
Yeah.
no idea that she was that. Yeah.
I don't think she ever really wanted to step away from the drums, I
Mm,
mean, I think
mm,
she was a shy person
mm,
and then she got sort of, thrown into the spotlight because she had such an amazing voice
mm.
and everyone's lucky for that.
What is your favourite city to play live, Ron?
Wow, that's kind of a hard one because you feel bad for all the other great cities that you you didn't name. But man, I love playing in Ireland, like Dublin. It's
Mm,
such a great city, and anywhere in Ireland, because I mean, I do fairly well there, and I've always felt very welcomed and appreciated there. So, but I could say that about London too, or I could say that about many cities in Canada, I think. But Dublin's always been special because the very first time I played there, during my first album tour, it was in '96. I played the first night I played Galway, and everyone was talking through my whole set, and I was very kind of unhappy.
mm,
The next night was in Dublin. I was expecting it to be the same, but everyone went just nuts. They knew all my songs, they were singing them,
yeah.
and that sort of I've never forgotten that.
That's something that really, yeah, troubles me at shows when people talk, especially when it's an artist like yourself. Do you know what I mean? You want to hear everything,
Mm.
and when you
Well,
can't, it's so frustrating. I've had so many sort of
yeah. Well,
heated
it was my
discussions
first.
with people.
Yeah, I think it was my first album, and so I mean,
Mm,
I didn't really know what to expect.
mm,
But
mm.
and it was a pub that I was playing to.
And finally, in the quick fire, Ron, if you could time travel to one concert in history, which show would you see?
I think I've thought about this. I would love to go back to Buddy Holly's last show. I can't remember the city it was in. He was on that fateful tour, the
Mm,
winter tour he was doing. I would love to have gone because he had Waylon Jennings on bass guitar, wasn't even a bass player. And apparently back then too, the only thing that went through the system was the vocals. So everything else was just live
yeah.
and people say that it sounded much better back then when it was
Mm,
like that. But the other reason I would love to go back in time is I would tell him not to get on that airplane. I would say, "Hey, I'm from the future. Do not get on that airplane."
mm,
So that's Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of the final show, but I would go back to the final Buddy Holly show.
Yeah, I want to say Charlotte, but I'm not 100% sure.
No,
I feel like it's one of
yeah,
those. Yeah, I can't remember, but I
it's
know.
not. It's more of like a Midwestern place. It's not Charlotte, but it's something like in Iowa or something like that. I think it's in Clear Lake. It was in. I think it was in Clear Lake, Iowa. Yeah.
Don't touch that dial. You're listening to The Mixtape.
The Mixtape is brought to you in association with Giglist. Giglist is your one-stop shop for all your live events. If you're looking to get out and experience some live music, you can filter by artist, venue, suburb, or date. If you are an artist, it will take you less than a minute to list your gig for free on the website. The Mixtape brought to you in association with Giglist. Gigs in a list. Let's drop into your mixtape track choices now then, mate. So as you know, my show's called The Mixtape. I want to get guests like yourself on. I like to, as a way of exploring their influences and inspirations, to ask them to pick a few songs in the same categories each time, and we'll have a quick chat about each song. And on the radio show, we'll play the songs out in between. So
Oh,
track one of your mixtape, Ron, is "Kick Your Tape Off" with an attention grabber, mate. What would you go with for that?
well, one I like to put on sometimes because it just sort of. I'm a big Warren Zevon fan, and there's a song called "Detox Mansion" that just I just love the intro to it. You know, it's very kind of yeah, sort of eye-opening or ear-opening when you hear it.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah,
especially at a
yeah.
at a good volume, especially. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. Great one to kick off, mate. A fantastic choice. And track two of your mixtape, Ron, is what is a song that you sing when you're on your own in the car or the shower?
Oh man, I sing so many songs. That's tough, you
Yeah.
know. But I like doing stuff like you know, like falsetto kind of stuff. Like oh, what's that song? Keep on trucking, you know, keep on trucking, day, you know, stuff like that. Or emotional rescue. You know, I love
Mm.
that kind of, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
keep on trucking.
Yeah, that's a great choice. That is a great choice, mate. The shower's always good for getting to those
Yeah,
points that
you know.
you can't normally get to with the steam and the reverb off the tires. Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Track three of your mixtape, Ron, is pick a cover version for your tape. What cover version would you put on there?
Well, you know, the very first time I ever heard the song "Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds," it was by Elton John.
Mm.
I was a member of the Elton John fan club. And when I heard that song, I thought, wow, this is the most amazing song. I can't believe it. And someone in my class told me, no, that's a Beatles song, you know. And it made me go to the library and I took out the double blue Beatle album that had all
Mm.
the hits on it. You know, and sure enough, it was a Beatles song. But to this day, I still prefer Elton John's version. It just sounds magical to me. And I think John Lennon plays on his version too. He
Mm.
sings back vocals or something. But that was it just brings me back to a very magical time when I was a member of the Elton John fan club, and I remember he performed it on the Cher variety show, you know, in
Mm.
'75 or whenever it was, and
Mm.
it was exciting to see him on television. So yeah, I would say that one.
That's something that's died out over the years, isn't it? The fan clubs. Like
Yeah,
you just don't get that sort of thing anymore, like fanzines and the little postcards. Even in the CDs, you used to get postcards you used to mail back and you get
yeah, yeah.
mailers and exclusive stuff. Like, yeah, it's really difficult now with social media. I think it's just the easy way to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, those days are gone, but yeah, I used to love I wait every month to get my little Elton John update or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
fun.
Nice for sure. Track four, Ron, is what is a song you wish you could play to your 18-year-old self?
Oh man, that's tough. You know, there's an artist named Judee Sill that I greatly admire, but I never heard her until, you know, some 2007 or where she kind of had a resurgence and I'd never heard of her before. And I mean, I love all her songs, but there's one in particular called "The Kiss" that just it's so beautiful. I wish I would have heard that. You know, it was like one of those "Where Have You Been All My Life" songs.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the poetry of it and the music. It was like Bach meets, you know, William Blake or something. Like it was crazy. And so I would have loved to have heard that song much sooner in my life, you know.
What sort of stuff were you actually listening to when you were 18, Ron?
Mostly hard rock, you know. I really loved hard rock, and I still love hard rock music. But I'd listen to like the Kinks and the Who, and like Zeppelin and Deep Purple. and all that British rock. I really, and I still love it. Some American rock too, but and obviously AC/DC from your part of the world. I love that stuff too. And yeah, so I really like. I was in a band, a rock band, and that's what I was trying to do. A few years later, I would discover Leonard Cohen and all those people, and it would change my whole trajectory. But at that time, I had long hair, and I liked to, do that type of music, the rock music.
Side note on AC/DC, they're touring Australia at the moment. I'm taking my 13-year-old son to see them in Perth next week. I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
How they doing? Are they still sounding good? And
the reviews and everything are really positive, and you know what it's like in the press, especially with older acts like that. They can't wait to knock them down and say, "Oh, they're finished. They got to hang up, blah blah." But the reviews are really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, all those artists like that, they're just irreplaceable. And then just to be in the room with them is like I'm going to see McCartney on Friday, and that's like, you know what I mean? Like and I've seen him a bunch of times, but even though he's 83 or whatever, he still can do what hardly anybody else can do. So
I said to my son the other week, I said, "You're going to be telling your grandchildren about the time you saw AC/DC with your dad," but he doesn't. He's only 13. He doesn't fully understand, the gravity and potentially their last ever tour, and what a huge band are. He's only just sort of got into them. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one in Perth.
Don't forget it. Yeah.
Track 5, Ron, of your mixtape is, if you were making up a tape for a romantic interest, you want to let someone know you're romantically keen on them, what would be a track you would use on your mixtape for that?
Well, I guess to mention Buddy Holly again, one of my favorite songs is "True Love Ways." In fact, when I made a mixtape for my wife when we first dated, and it was the first song on the mixtape was "True Love Ways" by Buddy Holly, and it was also our first dance wedding song too. So that's one that, yeah, that's one of my favorite songs of all time. So
I always love it when people can put their real world mixtape experiences into this show. It's great when people said that I've actually made up tapes. And so I interview a lot of younger people, and sometimes I even have to explain to them what a mixtape actually is or was, because they don't think of it like a Spotify playlist, but you can hold it in your hand. All right.
yeah.
And finally, Ron, track 6 of your mixtape is pick a deep cut, an album track or a B-side that you feel is a bit underappreciated.
Yeah. Well, there's a Paul McCartney song that no one ever talks about. I think it's one of his best songs called Warm and Beautiful. And it's almost like a classical melody. It's from his Wings Over America album, or Wings at the Speed of Sound album, I should say. And I remember when I met him in '96, I was asking him mostly Wings questions. I wanted to know about this song and that song, and that's the one I brought up at the table. And at first he couldn't remember it, and so I'm at the kitchen table singing it. I go, well, it goes like, sunlight's morning glory, all this stuff. And then it was coming back to him, so we're both at the table singing it. And because I was curious to know what the chords were, because they seem kind of tricky. And anyway, but that's a song that I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about it except me, and I just think it's one of his best songs. And I don't expect him to play it on Friday or anything, but it's a song that I love. So
Can we just roll that back a second there? The way you just casually mentioned singing to Paul McCartney, then
yeah.
what did that feel like? I imagine you were first album out, young artist. Then, like, what did that feel like? Were you nervous?
Well, I was nervous. I mean, it was '96. It was my first trip to England, and I happened to be touring with the band Squeeze, and it was Chris Difford who took me to Paul's house because he lived quite nearby. It was just surreal. It was a Sunday morning, and Linda invited us over. They were just making breakfast, and it was funny because before I left for England, there was a friend of mine back home who said, "Say hi to the Beatles for me," as a joke kind of thing. And so then literally I'm in a house with one of the Beatles, and it was surreal because I'm at a kitchen, very modest house too. It wasn't like fancy. I was at a kitchen table. Linda was cooking and Paul was sitting across from me. And at first I couldn't look at him. I was sort of looking at the floor or whatever. But gradually I was able to get my courage up. And we talked a lot, and I asked him a lot of questions about Wings, and he ended up playing me some new tracks on his stereo, and then we got the guitars out and we sang songs, and he played me 2 brand new songs, and then he passed the guitar to me, and I didn't know what to play him, so I ended up playing him one of his songs. I played,
Yeah.
Listen to What the Man Said.
Yeah.
And I played a Beach Boys song because I heard he liked the Beach Boys. So anyway, it was crazy. You know, I was there for maybe 3 hours, and probably one of the best things I've ever. I mean, I've met a lot of my heroes, but that one kind of
Yeah.
takes the cake, you know. So
Pretty much, yeah. What an amazing story. What a fantastic experience.
I'm older now than he was then, which is the other thing that's so surreal, you know.
Good to round it out, Ron. Future plans, once you got the Australian tour out of the way, what you got planned for 2026, mate?
Yeah, well, I mean, next year we have like we're doing England and Ireland and some Europe
Mhm.
shows, and then obviously Australia, New Zealand. In the summer, I think we're going to Denmark to do some things, possibly Sweden. I don't know. And there's still parts of Canada that I need to get to. So next year is looking as almost as busy as this year. So I just hope I can hold up and my voice holds up and all
Yeah.
that, because it's not as easy as it used to be, all the traveling and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So, but yeah, we feel like my band and I we feel like we're in the zone. We just finished a Canadian tour,
Yeah.
and we're just all very excited about getting over there.
No, for sure. We're really looking forward to seeing you, Ron. Safe travels down under. It is davidroywilliams.com for tickets for the Ron Sexsmith Hangover Terrace Tour. It is April the 26th, Rosemount Hotel in Perth. Safe travels, mate, and we'll see you when you get here. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Mark. Nice chatting with
Right.
you.
And you too, mate. See ya. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thank you so much for listening to the Mixtape podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to go to the top of the page and rate it 5 stars, or give us a like or follow on social media at the Mixtape podcast and radio show. Don't forget, there's over 100 archive episodes just waiting to be discovered. And all you need to do is visit themixtapepodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.